YouTube, how's everyone doing? I am Junior. I'm a barber located in Texas, representing Texas, and today I will be doing a high bald Texas taper fade. As you saw earlier, I was just combing through my client's hair, doing a scalp analysis. I asked him if he wanted a C cup. He said no, he wanted me to bald it out. And again, this is going to be a high taper fade, Texas taper. So I have my outliners. I set the line in a little curved. Then I come right, flip my outliners over, and I just bald out everything underneath. And I'm taking my first guideline with my outliners from his temple at his edge of box to the top of his ear. That's how I set in. I'm real big on doing reference points, and I just bald out underneath. Now moving on to the back. In the back, I usually do my tapers with a high arch. I start in the center, like so. I flip my outliner trimmer over, and then I just bring it up. And again, like I said, I use reference points. So I'm taking the line up in an arched angle, right perpendicular to his ears. So yes, that line will end at the bottom of both of his ears on the left and right side. That's what I use as my reference points as I take my bald line up in the back. And I'm just balding out. And right here, I am switching to my blower, just blowing all the hair off of them. I don't want them irritated. And here, these are my wall magic clips, and I modified them and turned them to balders. Shout out to 360 Jeezy. I saw him do this years ago, and it's a lifesaver. So I've been using it ever since. Yes, it gives the taper fades or any type of transition on any fade. Makes it a whole lot more dynamic. So now I'm switching to my Andes Supras detachable blade clippers, and I'll be using the 1.5 ceramic cutting guard. So what you guys will notice with my channel, yes, I can fade with adjustable clippers like the other barbers on YouTube, but to make myself different, I can also fade with the detachable guards. So most of my videos, you will primarily see me using these detachable guards. So that being said, I have the 1.5 on, and I'm going up a full inch. I'm moving his ear down, and I'm going behind his ear. And I use this as a guide. I use from the middle of his box for his edge up, and I go all the way down to the nape of his neck with the 1.5 guard. And all this is done with a C-cup motion. I'm using a full blade, and I go all the way down to the nape of his neck, right by that arch. And I turn him to the other side. I'm doing the same thing. I'm going up an inch. My hand is resting on top of his head, but I'm also stretching, which you don't see. And I'm just creating my area for fading and blending. I hold his ear down, and again, I follow that inch all the way down to the nape of his neck. And that's my fading area. But I'm not finished. That's just what I do on the left and right sides. And all this hair will be blended in. So now I do the same thing. Like I said, I'm using reference points. So now I'm going up a full inch. I'm just keeping it nice and horizontal from his left ear to his right ear, and I'm keeping it underneath his occipital bone. I'm combing, and I'm just going up an inch. I'm not doing any I'm not doing any blending or fading. I'm just debulking. Now my next guard I'm going to use is the OA. As you can see. So now I'm just going up right underneath the area I created, the line of demarcation with that 1.5. I'm just going underneath it. I will not go above the top line that I created with that 1.5. I'm just going to stay underneath. Just moving the bottom line up just an inch. I'm going to do that in the back. Then I'm going to turn him over to his right side, and I'll do the same thing. I'll start at the bottom, the little faint line that I made, that I created with that 1.5 detachable blade. With my OA, as you can see, I'm using it as a thinning shear. I'm just using the first couple of teeth. I'm turning it left, I'm turning it right. I'm not using the full blade. I'm combing, and I'm just attacking the bottom line, going up 1 inch. Same thing on this side. Angle my client's head. Even though my hand looks like it's resting, I'm actually pulling, stretching his skin, angling my clipper, using the OA blade, attacking the bottom line and the area underneath the 1.5 that I created. I will not touch that top line, not until later on. Now I'm switching to my 1A blade. And again, doing the same thing. Just cleaning up underneath the 1.5 guard. So I'm going to also attack the line that I created with the 1.5 and the OA. Just leading all the way up to the 1.5 without touching that. So that full area that's underneath the 1.5, that's the area that I'm attacking. And again, I'm only using the corners. I'm not using the full blade. It may seem like I'm using the full blade, but I'm only using the corners. And I will get better with my camera angles. This is my first tutorial. And like I said earlier, I just wanted to start filming. The name of my channel is Fading and Riding. My channel has been predominantly about me riding on my motorcycle, but I also wanted to bring in some fading. And see there, I'm stretching, I'm using my finger. Anytime you see my finger touching his head or touching his neck or just touching him, period, I'm stretching. I'm combing and I'm stretching. See my thumb? I'm pulling his skin and I'm stretching because his hair grows in all types of different angles and you have to stretch that skin. And again, I'm staying underneath the bulk because he told me he does not want anything touched. He's keeping his hair predominantly full and dark, and he just wants a nice taper fade to complement the hairstyle that he's trying to wear. So again, you notice the big harsh line that I left inside his fade. I'm going to come back to that later. So now I'm dropping down to the one guard. And again, I'm using a Andy Supra detachable clipper. I'm using detachable blades. And the same thing right here. As you can see, I'm stretching the skin. I'm tilting the clipper to the left and the right. I'm only using maybe the first 2 or 3 teeth. I'm not using the whole blade. See, I even point right there. I'm only using those teeth right there that I just showed. And again, as I come back to myself, I'm only using the teeth on the left side of the blade. As I go away from my client, I'm only using the teeth on the right side. Just using the corner, not using the full blade. And I tend to keep a comb in my hand. There's nothing wrong if you use a brush, but I tend to just keep a comb. But there will come times where you need a brush, so I'm not against brushes. And again, I just finished out the back. And again, I'm just cleaning up, cross-checking my work. All of the hairs that's underneath the 1.5, the first guard I started with, they should be faded or blended. Now it's time to attack that bulk. I'm starting with my higher guard. So this will be the highest guard I use. I'm going to come down with the fade. I'm blending down. So this will be the biggest guard I use, the 3.5. Doesn't really matter where you start, but I'm just starting off on his right side. And I'm going straight up. The reason I'm going straight up is, as again, my client specified that he wants to keep his hair nice and full. So I'm not digging in to create another harsh demarcation of a line. I'm just debulking. That's the word I'm looking for. I'm just debulking. So I'm going to debulk that top line. I'm attacking only the top line. The bottom part, once I finish coming down, so what I'm about to do is I'm going to start with the 3.5, then I'm going to move to the number 2 guard, then I'm going to come down to the guard I first started with, which was the 1.5. And if I see anything underneath that, then I keep going down until I get basically to the 000. So you notice that hair sticking up. So now I just turn my clipper over and I just comb it down. And I'm using very light to minimum pressure. You don't see my client's head jerking or moving. All I'm doing is letting the clipper work. I'm barely touching him. And again, not digging in. I'm just going straight up, running my clipper all the way through his hair, through that bulky line that I created with that 1.5. I'm just slowly erasing it. Going behind his ear, hitting those scragglers, those hairs that's sticking up. Notice I'm not going nowhere near his crown, his ridge, or the apex of his head. We're leaving all that hair alone. And you'll see why at the end. And again, I start going against the grain, and then I come back and go with the grain, just to lay it down. Because some days he's going to wear his hair in its natural state. So those are days where he's going to want his hair to lay down. So I'm trying to give it some type of direction. Okay, now I'm about to take off that 3.5 and switch to my number 2 ceramic blade on my Andes. Okay, same thing. I'm just attacking the area of the 1.5. I'm just debulking. Just making a nice blend and a nice transition. That's all I'm doing. I'm just coming down, mainly using my corners. Giving it a stroke with my clipper, and then I'm combing it down with my comb. I'm going to move his ear out of the way so I won't make no type of accidents and hit his ear. All right, at this time I just switched the clipper over and I'm just combing it down. Okay, can't forget about that hair behind his ear. All right, with the corner, I'm using the right corner. Now I'm switching using the left corner and just debulking. Like I said, anytime you see my hand touch his head, I'm stretching his head, I'm repositioning him. What you don't see with and as a barber, to all my new barbers, you'll begin to start doing this a lot. You'll start doing stuff that you hardly wouldn't notice that you're doing. It just becomes second nature and natural. So sometimes you'll see his chair move. What I'm doing is I'm moving it either with my elbow or with my knee. And I'm just making sure I keep him in position to where I can see all the hair. And I keep him surrounded by light so I can make sure I can see all the hair freely. Okay? And like I said, anytime I touch his skin, touch his head, I'm stretching. Either his ear, I'm stretching his skin. Still using my number 2. Just coming down on it. Still attacking the bulk. Moving his ear out of the way. I'm checking my mirror, as you saw. And if you notice my wrist, I don't wear a watch. Doesn't mean I'm taking my time, because if you're really paying attention to this video, I'm cutting in real time. This is not sped up. Look at my hands. You don't see my hands moving all fast and crazy. Okay, my next guard will be the 1.5. This is the guard I started with, remember? So you hear a lot of barbers say whatever line you put in, you have to use that same trimmer or same clipper to get that line out. So we started with the 1.5, and that's how we're going to end. And now I'm just going against the grain. Just attacking the little bit of bulk that's left over. Using my corners. I'm going to start on the right. I'm going to go behind his ear. I'm going to do his back. And I'll finish on the left. Now I'm going with the grain. And again, this is really, my channel is just dedicated for people that's just, curious about barbering, just, becoming new to barbering, beginners, intermediate. This is really not for advanced barbers. This is just for, people that's just interested in learning about the craft. Or you may have wanted to learn about how is it to cut with blades, because a lot of times people just don't use blades. They use them to remove hair, big bulks of hair. They don't really they don't really use the blades to fade with. And I understand, because it's a process. You have to, me myself, I always cut the clipper off. Some people leave the clipper running and you have to change the guards. It's a lot easier to use adjustables. I just like how the blend and the fades come out with the blades. And don't get me wrong, I will do some haircut tutorials with adjustables as well. And you'll see the difference. But once you come up with any type of foundation, any type of system, you just apply it. So the same way I'm attacking this haircut with these blades, I would do the same thing with adjustables, with removable attachment combs. I would do the same thing. Okay, now this would be called cross-checking. So I'm just cross-checking my work. I still notice some bulk, so I'm gonna use my number 1, and I'm gonna do some clipper over comb with the detachable guard. So this is equivalent to if you see another barber clipper over comb with the adjustable blade all the way open. If the adjustable blade is 0 gap, that's a number 1. So that's the guard that I have on. I have a number 1. And I'm just checking my work. I see a little faint line, a little area I can clean up, give some more detail. Use my corner. And yep. So as I put the comb in, I'm not, like I said, I'm not the best person to do clipper over comb by any means. Not the best barber at all. I know I'm fairly decent. But you just have to, you can't be scared. You have to put the comb in, angle it, pull it back towards yourself, and any hair that you see, just take it off. Calm down. See, I angle it back towards me. I go in, angle it back towards me, and I just take it off. Nothing to it. Now, what I will say, right there, as you may or may not saw, I try to keep the shape. I try to make the taper uniform and keep his hair uniform. So I tend, or just the shape of his head, I tend to lay the comb flat and then I pull it out just to maintain the shape of the overall taper. And that's how I keep it nice and flush. If that makes any sense. All right. Still saw a little bit more hair I need to clear up, so I'm going to use the 000 guard. Now, if you're using an adjustable clipper, this would be the equivalent to you closing your lever all the way. If your trimmer if your clipper is 0 gapped, all the way closed should be a 000. Now, if you're using some modified blades, your all the way closed could be a 40, or it can even be an outliner. It just all depends if your blades are modified and if you have them sharpened. But if you have, the typical normal blade, all the way open is a number 1, all the way closed is a 000. Just keep that in mind. And then if you put your clipper in the halfway point, that would be the 0A. Okay, now I'm about to use the outliner because there's still a faint little line that's left, because in the beginning, remember when I first initially started my guideline, I used my Andis cordless T outliners, and those blades are modified. Is my trimmer zero gapped, and I did sharpen up that blade, so it left a little faint line, so I had to use this outliner blade in order to get it. And I just didn't want to switch to my, I could have easily switched to my trimmer and took this line out. But I just decided I want to show you guys how to use it with if you have a detachable clipper. If you have a Andis Super like I'm using, or if you have the Oster Octane, or just any clipper. Now I'm switching to my Balders, and I'm giving him a freehand shape. So what I'm doing, what I edited out, I had repicked this hair out again, and now I'm just, all of the wild hairs I see, I'm just trimming them off. When you do this, you have to be very, very careful. Try not to apply too much pressure. You also want to have your model or your client be as very still as possible, because one false move or a sneeze and you're going to mess up his hair, and all of his hard work growing out his hair will be for nothing. Now what I'm using is just the bottom of my balder clipper and just trimming those hairs as they hang over to his forehead over his edge up. I'm just trimming those hairs away. That way when it's time to give him an edge up, it'll be nice and neat. Okay, now I'm about to apply holding spray. Anywhere that I'm gonna put my T outliner on him, I want to apply some holding spray just to keep those hairs together. And for time constraints, I'm not going to show myself using a blow dryer. Just know I use I spray holding spray, then I use the blow dryer, I comb his hair, and then I start the edge up. I'm going to start in the back. Cordless T outliners. You want to move the ear out of your way and just follow that natural line. Now I also can show you a trick. I'm not sure if I do it on this side or the next side, but you also can use your comb as a guide if you want to make sure you keep the integrity of the line. Just put your comb right above where his edge up should be and just follow that line. You'll see what I'm talking about in the front. Anytime I do an edge up on the front of my client, I always use my comb as a guide. I try not to just eyeball it. I try to use my comb just so I can have some consistency and so I can have balance. And you'll see in just a moment. I try not to go wild and crazy. See, I'm about to use my comb. And I'm using it as a guide. Just keep that line nice and straight. That way the line won't get away from you and you won't have one line longer than the other. Stretch the bottom of the nape of his neck. Okay, now we're moving on to the front. Now I'll start in the center, but I'm not going all the way over. I'm all about reference points. So every client edge up is different, but everybody has a nose. So you start in the center of that nose and you work your way left or right. Notice what I just did. I combed his eyebrow and then I angled my comb from the top of his temple down to the edge of his eyebrow. And that's how I made my reference point and my guideline for my edge up. And now I'm just going to connect. I start back in the center and I connect that line over to the right. And I'm going to turn them so you can see. I'm using very light pressure. And see? And again, on the left side, I'm going to start in the center, work my way slightly over, comb his eyebrow, angle it from the bottom of his eyebrow up to the top of his head, and put my little guideline in. And then I just connect the lines. And I've been doing that for years, and that helps me with my edge ups. And I'm not okay, I noticed a couple hairs hanging over, so I'm clipping over, combing it. A couple hairs that I needed to take care of. I'm not anti-enhancements, but this client, okay, I'm using the Tune 45 shave gel. Great product. I'm going to put it all around the areas that I'm going to use the razor blade, but I kind of got lost. So I'm not an anti-enhancement person. I do use enhancements, but these two clients, they didn't want any enhancements. So you will see some videos with me doing enhancement on the clients that want it. And if the client doesn't want it, I won't use any. So this is a trick I learned in barber school years ago. So I roll that tissue paper around my hand. And now as I shave, any excess shave gel or the little hairs that I need to clean off the razor, I'm going to wipe it on that neck duster, that neck paper. Instead of, you see some barbers, they wipe it on the cape or they wipe it in their hand. That's dangerous. I've tried that. I've cut my hand doing that. So I switched back to this method and it works for me. My client didn't want me to touch his sideburns. He just wanted me to simply outline them. So that's what I'm doing. And I'm only going to do this one side, just, trying to keep the video short as possible. I didn't want to bore you guys with a long video. Now I'm dusting the hair off of him and he's pretty much finished for now. So I'm going to let him look at it because he wanted to see it in his natural state. And then I'm also going to curl it up with him with the sponge because he also wanted the sponge look. So this is one look he could rock just in a natural state. And here comes the other look. He likes what he sees. Now we're going to take it to another level. Now I applied a little product to his hair. And there you go. Just sponging his hair, curling up his hair. And this is why he didn't want me to touch it. Thanks again, everyone, for watching. Expect more video content for me. And again, I'm Junior. And appreciate everyone coming through and viewing my channel. Please like, subscribe, and share this with someone. Hopefully this can help someone out that's interested in using blades for fading. And expect more from me. And I'm out of here. Peace. Yeah, he feeling himself. He licking his lips and everything. He like this cut.